The shelter smelled like industrial cleaner and cafeteria food. Leah had been sleeping on a cot next to mine for 11 days. She was 6 years old and she hadn't complained once. Not about the shared bathrooms. Not about the noise at night. Not about the fact that we'd gone from having a home to having a numbered bed in a room with 14 other women. She just clear as throat held my hand and trusted me. And that trust was the thing that kept me moving when I wanted to fall apart. I won't pretend I didn't cry at night. I did quietly after Leah fell asleep. I would turn toward the wall and cry until I couldn't anymore. Then I would wipe my face and make a plan for the next day. Because that's what you do when your 6-year-old is watching you. You keep moving. We had been in the shelter for 11 days when the black sedan arrived. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Leah and I were sitting outside on a bench near the entrance. She was drawing in a notebook I'd found at the donation table. I was filling out a job application on my phone. The day was gray and cold, and I was trying very hard not to think about how we'd gotten here. Then I heard it. The sound of a car that doesn't belong in a shelter parking lot. Smooth engine, slow movement. I looked up. A black sedan, expensive, clean. It pulled into the lot and stopped. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the back door opened and a woman stepped out. She was in her 70s, elegant, gray hair pinned back. A wool coat that looked like it cost more than a month of my old rent. She stood next to the car and looked around the parking lot with sharp eyes that missed nothing. And then those eyes landed on me. My grandmother, Evelyn Hart, hadn't aged the way most people do. She'd just become more concentrated, more precise, more herself. We hadn't spoken in almost 2 years. Our falling out had been quiet and mutual and painful in the way only family arrangements can be. But she was here, standing in a shelter parking lot, looking at me like she was trying to decide whether to be relieved or furious. She settled on both. "Sarah," she said, walking toward me. Her voice was exactly as I remembered. "What on earth are you doing here?" Leah looked up from her notebook. "Grandma Evelyn," she said, "because children remember faces, even when adults pretend people don't exist." My grandmother's expression softened when she saw Leah, then hardened again when her gaze swept back to me. "Sarah, answer me. What are you doing at a shelter?" "We're staying here temporarily," I said carefully, "while I get back on my feet." My grandmother looked around the parking lot again, looked at the building, looked at Leah's cot visible through the window. Her jaw tightened. "Get in the car," she said. "Grandma, I can't just get in the car," she repeated. "Both of you now." There was a tone in her voice I remembered from childhood, the one that meant she wasn't asking twice. I looked at Leah as she was already standing, notebook in hand, ready to go. We got in the car. For the first few minutes, no one spoke. Leah sat between us, looking back and forth like she was watching a tennis match. My grandmother stared out the window. I stared at my hands. Then my grandmother turned to me. "When did this start?" "About 5 weeks ago," I said. "We lost our apartment. I couldn't make the payments. I tried to find something else, but there's nothing in our price range right now." My grandmother's brow furrowed. "What about the Hawthorne Street property?" I froze. "What?" "The Hawthorne Street house," she repeated. "The one I put in a trust for you 3 years ago. Why aren't you living there?" The words didn't make sense at first. I stared at her. "I don't know what you're talking about." My grandmother looked at me for a long moment. "I transferred a house on Hawthorne Street into a family trust 3 years ago. Specifically so you and any children you had would always shave a place to live. Your parents were named as trustees." My hands went cold. My parents managed that property. My grandmother's eyes narrowed. They were supposed to make sure you had access to it. Are you telling me you didn't know about it? I had no idea the property existed, I said. My grandmother was quiet for a long time. Very still. That kind of stillness I recognized. It meant something was building underneath. I see, she said finally. She picked up her phone and made a call. I sat there in the back seat of that sedan trying to process what I'd just learned. My parents knew about a house in a trust, a house meant for me, and we were sleeping in a shelter. My grandmother hung up. I'm going to need you to tell me everything that happened in the past 2 months. She said, everything. So, I told her about losing my job, about trying to find work, about burning through my savings, about the apartment and the landlord and the eviction notice, about bringing Leah to the shelter because I had nowhere else to go. My grandmother listened without interrupting. When I was done, she looked at Leah. How are you doing, sweetheart? She asked. Leah shrugged. It's okay. The food at the shelter is pretty good. They have corn sometimes. My grandmother's face did something complicated. I'm glad to hear that, she said. Then she looked at me. I'm going to make some calls. The next morning, my grandmother picked us up from the shelter at 9. We drove to her lawyer's office. A man named Mr. Collins, who looked like he'd been practicing law since before I was born. He had reading glasses on a chain and a desk covered imperfectly. Organized folders. He looked at me over his glasses. You're Sarah Hart. Yes. And you were unaware of the Hawthorne Street Trust property? Completely, I said. He nodded, made a note. Your grandmother established that trust 3 years ago? He said. The property has been in it ever since. Your parents were named co-trustees with the specific responsibility of ensuring you had access to the home. Instead, my grandmother said from beside me, I'd like to know what they've been doing with it. Mr. Collins cleared his throat. I took the liberty of making some inquiries this morning. He slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. Inside was a rental agreement for the Hawthorne Street property, signed by my parents dating back 2 years. My stomach dropped. They rented it out for $2,000 a month, Mr. Collins confirmed. For $20 for months. I did the math in my head. $48,000. My parents had collected $48,000 in rent on a house that was supposed to be mine. While Leah and I slept in a shelter, my hands were shaking. Can they do that? As trustees, they had management authority, Mr. Collins said, but that authority was supposed to be exercised for your benefit, not theirs. What they've done is a breach of fiduciary duty, potentially fraud. My grandmother's voice was very quiet when she spoke. I want to see them today. Mr. Collins nodded. I've already arranged it. My parents arrived at the lawyer's office at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. My father in a pressed shirt, my mother in a blazer. They stopped when they saw me, and my grandmother sitting there. My father's expression shifted from confident to careful. My mother's smile flickered. Evelyn, my father said, we didn't know you'd be here. Sit down, Robert. My grandmother said. They sat. Mr. Collins placed the rental agreement on the table between us. My father looked at it, said nothing. Would you like to explain this? My grandmother asked. My mother spoke first. We were managing the property. That's what trustees do. You were collecting $2,000 a month, my grandmother said, on a property that exists specifically to house Sarah and her daughter, who have been living in a shelter for 11 days. Silence. My father looked at his hands. My mother looked at the wall. We were going to tell her, my mother said finally. We were just waiting for the right time. The right time was before she went to a shelter. My grandmother said. Her voice was ice. We needed the money, my father said. Things have been difficult. Things have been difficult for Sarah, too, my grandmother said. She's been sleeping on a cot with a 6-year-old while you've been collecting rent on her house. My mother tried a different angle. The property needed management. We were providing a service. You were providing a service to yourselves, Mr. Collins said, to the tune of $48,000 over 2 years. My father looked at me for the first time. Sarah, we were going to make it right. When I asked, my voice came out steadier than I felt. When exactly were you going to make it right? Before or after? Leah asked me why we didn't have our own bathroom. My mother flinched. My grandmother stood up. Robert, Linda, here is what is going to happen. You are going to vacate that property immediately. The current tenants will be given proper notice. Sarah and Leah will move in within the week. You will repay every dollar you collected in rent and you will be removed as trustees. My father's jaw tightened. You can't just. I absolutely can. My grandmother said, and I will. You had one responsibility. Keep my granddaughter and her child safe. You failed and you profited from that failure. My mother started crying. We made a mistake. Yes, my grandmother said. You did. She picked up her bag. Collins will handle the paperwork. I expect full cooperation. She looked at them one final time. I am deeply ashamed of both of you. Then she walked out. I followed her. In the hallway, my grandmother stopped and took a breath. She looked tired in a way I hadn't seen before. I'm sorry, she said. I should have checked in sooner. I should have made sure. You didn't know, I said. Neither did I. She looked at me. Where is Leah now? With a volunteer at the shelter, I said. She's watching a movie. My grandmother nodded. Go get her. You're both staying with me until the house is ready. Grandma, we can't. You can, she said. And you will. We stayed with my grandmother for 9 days. Leah slept in a real bed for the first time in almost 2 weeks. She took baths instead of shelter showers. She ate breakfast at a dining table with cloth napkins. She thought it was the greatest adventure of her life. On the 10th day, we moved into the Hawthorne Street house. It was a 3-bedroom, a small yard, a kitchen with actual counter space. Leah ran through every room, declared the smallest bedroom her own because it had a window seat, immediately began planning how to decorate it. I stood in the living room and cried. Not the quiet shelter tears. The real kind. The kind that come from relief so deep it feels like something breaking open. My parents paid back the money quietly in full. No apologies were given. No explanations offered beyond what had already been said. I didn't ask for more. I wasn't interested in performances of regret. I was interested in Leah having a home. My grandmother called every Sunday after that. Not long calls, just checking in. Practical, efficient. Love expressed in consistency rather than words. 1 month after we moved in, Leah came to me with a drawing. A house with a yard. 3 stick figures in front of it. Me, her, and a small cat she'd been asking for. At the bottom in her uneven 6-year-old handwriting, she'd written our home. I put it on the refrigerator. It's still there. So, tell me, did my grandmother go too far? Or did she do exactly what needed to be done? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Echoing Heart Tales for more. I'll see you in the next one.